but I'm saving up for the parts that I want to build the ultimate system that I'm thinking of. I don't know if any of those were English. It's Joe, and as promised, we're going to start focusing in more on tech. And yeah, he's wearing the same shirt he was wearing when he made that last video. It's called batch filming. Check it out. Let's talk about what we have sitting here on the desk. As you can see, this is my current personal rig because I'm making some big plans for a super duper weirdo custom build that I want to do. But it's going to take a while to get the parts together. But for now, what I have here is a fairly basic system. It's a first gen Ryzen 1600. So it's the 16 cores, yeah, right. It's the 6-core, 12-threaded first gen Ryzen. It's got a whopping 16 gigs of RAM because the B-die stuff I've been using, I've been slowly burning it out. So that does happen. It's got an NZXT water cooler. It's got 15 terabytes of storage, a couple of NVMe SSDs. It's got what I need to be a home system for now. But my plans are going to be awesome, so keep tuned for that. The biggest thing in here, and the thing that kind of instigated me coming back into the tech space for reviews and fun builds and stuff, is this guy. This is an EVGA for the Win 3 Ultra RTX 3080. A good buddy of mine signed up for the EVGA lottery like a year and a half ago. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, he actually got his name drawn. So he was able to buy one. He already has a 3090, and so does his buddy. So they called me up because when they got their names on the list after they got their 3090s, I'm like, if you get your name pulled, I'll take the card regardless. So because of their generosity, which helps out the channel greatly, and again, you guys can help it by using my Amazon affiliate links and all that good stuff, I was able to get a RTX 3080 for MSRP, because when you sign up with the EVGA thing, you sign up, and when it becomes available, they send you a message, and you can buy the card. So what that's done is presented an opportunity. Last year, I did a video, you can probably find it up here, where I put an MSI Gaming X Trio 2080 Ti on top of a, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was an AMD SoC motherboard, and it barely ran, and it was bigger than the entire computer itself because the card was massive. So is this guy, 3 fans, all that good stuff. Well, today we're going to try to do it again. I'm going to see if you can get away with just spending your money on a graphics card. And in order to do that, we're going to use an old AMD platform. This is an AM3 motherboard. This is off of my old P7 or P5, P3, I don't know, one of them. But this was the tray that you can turn into a little test bench, and that's what I've done here. But this is an AMD Athlon 2. Yes, it's a very old CPU. I can run up to an X6 on here, which I may do to see what you can do with budget-friendly parts. But this was my office PC for the last 3 or 4 months. I recently upgraded to just a pre-built Dell that I got pretty cheap, and I'll have to review that as a office desktop. But we're going to put a RTX 3080 onto a AMD Athlon 2. So what I have to do right now is I need to take this, I believe this is a TFX power supply. This is an EVGA 500 watt 80 plus gold power supply. Came out of their Hadron Air case. But I'm going to take this, hook it up to this, and then we're going to take that and see what happens. So let's go ahead and I guess we'll do a little bit of a time crunch, and you'll see me kind of putting it together, because I do have to put a cooler on this guy. If you've been with me here on the channel for a while, you'll know that I like to water cool stuff. I tend to build my own systems. I think it's cooler looking, it's better in terms of functionality, and that will be happening with my personal rig as soon as I get all the parts together. It's taking a while. Just the fittings are going to be like $300, so yeah, it takes a while to get that put together. Anyways, when I buy parts, I usually get stock air coolers and things like that. Here's a tip for you. Keep all that stuff, because what you have here is the Wraith Prism. I can't remember exactly which one this is. This is off the higher end, the Ryzen 9 3700 or 38. I don't remember which one this came off of, but it was a higher end R series, and it's got the big copper plate on the bottom and the bigger cooler that encompasses it and has a full downdraft and all that good stuff. Those are all pop buzzwords. But what we're going to do is we're going to put that on an AM3, and it does work, even though it doesn't look like it would, because this is obviously for a newer architecture. It'll fit fine because it uses a similar retention system It's not exactly the same. The size is slightly different, but it's close enough in the length that it's going to work. The width, the mounting bracket here is a little bit narrower than AM4, but it should still work fine. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on, use some Arctic silver. I love Arctic silver. And I'm going to do the spread method. You can yell at me if you want, but I'm going to do the spread method. I think it's the most effective way of mounting a cooler, especially when you look at this stock cooler and you see that the copper plates, they touch the CPU, but there's actually a gap in the middle. So you want as much coverage as you can. So let's go ahead and do that. So this is just some Arctic 5. I buy it off of Amazon. You can get it for pretty cheap. It's like $6 or $7 a tube. It does conduct, so be careful if you're doing this on other things, but for this big-ass CPU, which is completely isolated, it'll be just fine. And yes, I'm just using my finger to spread it around because that's all you need. Thermal compound is not meant to be applied super-ass thick. It's designed to make up for the micro fissures and little air pockets that are formed when this stuff is made, or imperfections, to give a flush mounting surface for your cooler. That's a PC builder's thumb if I've ever seen one. Of course, that's not a thumb.
Oh my god, he mounted it so wrong. There we go.
Yes, kids, I always make it look harder than it actually is. But as you can see, it's nice and firm now. So it works just fine. Go ahead and plug your fans in, which happen to be right here. Those new to my channel will know now when I tell you that I have nerve damage. So if you see me missing things, like easy things to connect, that's why. Please don't leave it in the comments. Oh, what's wrong with you, Spazoid? I've heard it before. As I said, we're going to be using this Evga 500 watt power supply. It'll work just fine. In order to do that, I'm going to steal the plug off of one of my monitors because convenience. We love convenience. And will allow me to hook everything up, including our SATA drive. This does have a full 8-pin on the motherboard, so we're going to go ahead and hook that up correctly. There we go. Yay. Which hopefully, and I can't remember if I was able to do it. I don't think I did at the office, but I should be able to overclock this CPU just to see if we can kill it too. Hook up our 24-pin. There we go. Oh, just so you know, this is Corsair Vengeance 1866 megahertz, I believe. DDR3 at 16 gigabytes, which is more than enough. It's probably worth more than this entire system, but we'll cross that bridge for stupidity when we get to it. Now's the point where you guys are probably going to try to stop me and go, hey, wait a minute, buddy. How are you planning on actually running this graphics card? And that's an excellent question, and don't call me buddy. And that is because this power supply is actually impressive for what it is, because it does have dual 8-pins, because it is a 500 watt gold rated power supply, and they decided to give it dual 8-pins. Awesome. I was actually running a 1080 Ti on this power supply because a 1080 Ti falls within the power regulation when you leave it stock. A 3080, not a Ti, I wish, but a 3080 can run, at least the FTW3s, can run a 450 watt BIOS on them. So, yeah, this thing right now is still hooked up to my 1000 watt power supply in back of the 011 Dynamic you got there. So what we are going to do is we are going to use this guy. If you ever bought water cooling parts or pumps or anything, you usually get this with your water cooling pumps. This is a jumper. You can make your own. As you can see, you just need to jump 2 pins to initiate a power supply. But we're going to take the power supply, disconnect it from this motherboard, along with the EPS 8-pin, because you don't want to send power to the CPU when you're not actually powering the system. You're going to see some stuff power on in this case. However, ignore it. So as you can see, once the jumper is installed on the 24-pin, you now have a life support system for your graphics card. And I have a fully modular 1000 watt power supply, so I have longer cables on mine. Again, your mileage may vary depending on what your system is. I greatly apologize, but now we can do that. And no, I'm not going to screw it down. It's a test bench. It doesn't need to be. For storage, I'm just using a cheap 128 gig, I believe it is. No, 240 gig. Nice. This came out of a auction PC that I bought. Let me grab the mouse and keyboard, get that set up, and then we will try to boot it into Windlers and see what the hell happens. So I'll be right back. Hey, we're booted into the BIOS, which is really all I really wanted to do. And yes, I said really twice, but that's fine. As you can see, we're running fine. 29 degrees, 27 degrees on the CPU. Yeah, that's fine. Just to show you what I had to do. So I went ahead and used the jumper. I got the card going. I have custom LED on here. That's why it looks like this. It's not a very vibrant white because this is actually chrome when it's off. Pretty cool thing that they do, but it diffuses the light quite a bit. But it sees all the memory. The cooler is going. So what we need to do now is actually go in and install... I don't know why I said it that way, but we need to install Windows 10 as a fresh install, download some programs, and come back. So, no lie, in the time it took for NVIDIA and Cinebench to install and run, I was able to fry up some dumplings. Fried dumplings. That's not the point of this video. We'll get back to it, yo. Anyway, Athlon 2 X4 630. That is an awesome processor. Yes, that is a little bit of a Canadian yay. Yeah, okay, sure, you betcha. And it ran a whopping 225 CB score. And this thing uses DDR3, but that's like DDR2 territory processor because the Athlon is an old architecture, ancient freaking architecture. And again, I could run a Phenom on this board, and I probably will at some point just to see if any upgrades make any difference. But 225 CB, which is horrendous. What 225 means is that when we run anything, such as a Firestrike or anything that is GPU and CPU dependent, this thing is going to fall down so hard that I'll be surprised if this GPU works past 40%. So what I'm going to do now is let this update for 4 years, eat my lunch, and then I'll come back once I have like Firestrike running. Joe can call things. It's almost like he's played with tech before. Now, this is Night Raid. It's not a very hard test to run. It is when the computer is just junky. But, as you can see, whopping 39% at 27 degrees. I have the fan curve set on the EVGA to like 70% because I like to keep it as cool as possible. I don't give two squirts about noise because I wear headphones. Always. Even though I have a nice sound bar. I keep that at the office. But as you can also see, 60% CPU utilage in a graphics test. That's pretty crazy. But if I was to play games in this resolution, which I believe is 1080p, and it was this simple to run, I'd be fine. Yes, 1200 megahertz. Ooh, it's actually pulling a little bit more speed than originally thought. Yes. You're doing, oh, there we go. Yeah, you can see there's really no demand for this GPU on this system. But I will run Firestrike Extreme in a bit just to show you what happens when you try to slam the GPU when you don't have enough CPU. I had to actually quit and sign out in order to reset the system because it was frozen at the CPU test. What does that mean? That means I need to spend about 20 minutes or so overclocking the system just to get it to a point where it's usable. And yeah. So I'm going to figure out what's a stable overclock. It does give me some fuel for another video, just in case you're trying to stretch your old hardware. I will come back after it's overclocked. This might be another day. Welcome back. Same day, obviously. I don't know why I said that. You wouldn't know that. But same day. And the overclock I was able to achieve was a 3.35 gigahertz overclock, which is on all 4 cores, which is always locked in, which is what I like to do. Turn off the CIE and the cooling quiet states and all that stuff that would reduce power and thus make it a little bit less performal. Yeah, I just said performal. The overall temperature, who knows, but going off the few that are actually reading from the motherboard, it's probably getting up to about 60, 65 degrees C. It is a PWM controlled CPU fan and it's not going that fast, so I'm thinking it's probably in the high 50s, low 60s. But I was able to overclock it to 3.3 gigahertz. I got the RAM to run at 1666, which is its rated speed. This is not a great motherboard. I think it was like an OEM motherboard out of something. I don't remember 100%, but I'm pretty sure it was an OEM board. So any voltage added causes it to crash. Otherwise, I've had Athlons run up to 4.7 gigahertz, and I actually have a video. It's up there, I believe. But 297 CB. Quite frankly, a lot of these old quad-core processors, be it the old i5s, like the 750s and stuff, in some of the low-end Phenom lineup, they all do about this kind of a number. 300 that's a 72-point increase. That's over 30% faster. So, will that allow us to run a CPU-based anything? Who knows? Let's give it a shot. I really was hoping to get this thing up to around 4 gigahertz, because 4 gigahertz would have allowed it to overcome some of the speed limitations that you run into with certain titles, because there are some games that won't run if it runs under like 3.1 or 3.2 gigahertz. That's just the way it goes. So I'm going to redo the Night Raid or whatever one I was running and see if it will make it through the entire test. Despite my best efforts, I have been unable to get the CPU test to complete on Night Raid. I'm hoping it might on Firestrike. However, I can clearly tell you we got problems. Although I'm impressed that the graphics card is running to 1900 megahertz, 1965 there, because a lot of times they won't even go that high. But I'm also noticing the CPU is going to about 50, 60. Wow, look, it went all the way up to 90%. But these numbers you're seeing on screen, that's with, again, a 3080. It should be twice that minimum, because this is just Firestrike regular. And it's hitting a whopping 47. Again, I'm blown away at these numbers, because I've had a lot less result from other graphics cards that I put in. So the fact that the CPU is actually allowing it to run this fast is impressive. It might be the whole Ampere architecture working well with this system, or I have no clue. But we'll see if it actually completes the test, because I do have the Firestrike run saved from an actual first gen, obviously, but a first gen Ryzen system. So yeah, I got tired of waiting for games to install, and then one of them that I installed failed to actually load onto the system. So what we're doing now is we're playing Dirt 4. This is the Dirtfish Academy opening level, and for graphics I have it set to Ultra. Everything is as high as it can go, literally no other up options. And for video, which, by the way, video mode, what the hell? What a stupid way to put the options. Obviously was not designed here in the US of A, where we use washing machines as measurements. No, 1080, 1920 by 1080. It's a 32-inch monitor, but it's just a 1080p panel, and I don't have it set to go above that. I can do it, but there's no real point. Although I could do it maybe to take some load off of the CPU. Maybe I'll try that later. But everything is literally as high as it can be. And I've already crashed a few times. But if you look there in the corner, you'll see we're only getting about 65 to 80 FPS. And that's totally playable, especially since this is an old 60 FPS panel. Oops. Well, you put up a wall, I'm going to try to go through it. But this is just a 60 FPS panel, so it is playable. But this is a RTX 3080. And it's being held back because it's hitting, what, 55% usage, 50% usage. It is boosting up to its boost clock. Oh, come on. It's just concrete. I should have been able to go through that. And the CPU is only going to 65%. So we have what we would call too much GPU and not enough CPU. It's a little bit of a sad thing. Can I fit? Yay! There's a wall. And it's not going to go any higher. So I put on a hoodie. I'm a little cold. But what was the point of this whole video? Well, I have a 3080, and I was bored, so I thought I would do that. I am intending on water cooling this, but I'm trying to save up for the system I want to build. And every time I lay down and go to sleep, which is a lot because humans, I get more and more ideas. And I don't want to share them because I don't want to give them away. but I got some cool ideas for something I want to build. So if you want to help out, I'm going to have a link to like an Amazon shopping list. If you guys want to maybe contribute to the channel, help me build the 2022 PC of the 2022s. We'll do that, and maybe I'll get like a plaque made with all your names or your screen names or whatever put on it, and we'll dedicate it to you guys. That would be kind of cool. And then I think you'll be pretty impressed with my plans. And I'm trying to do it right and get all the parts before I start building it, as opposed to normally when I would just kind of just wing it. Would I ever suggest anybody use an old-ass Athlon 2 in 2022? No. But what I do want to do... Hello. But what I do want to do is maybe see if, with like a $20, $25 investment, if we can make this usable for a youngster. Now, a lot of you have kids, especially since the pandemic happened, although they're probably too young to play games. But I want to see if we could turn this into like a Minecraft machine, or a Roblox, or even a Fortnite machine. I don't have Fortnite, I have PUBG, so we'll turn it into a PUBG machine. I don't have Fortnite because I refuse to play it because I don't want to get addicted. And yeah, let's see if for like a very small layout investment, see how small that is? That's small, that's really small. If we can make this a usable system for a youngster. And who knows, maybe I'll give it away or something. But this goes back to the root of what I used to do, which was finding good deals and making them work and living with them. I actually had this system at my office for 3 months because I sold my good systems to help my business get going. And that's why I'm finally able to afford a nice graphics card again. And I'm going to keep on building up and saving up and building that ultimate computer system. So come back for that. Don't do this. I don't know why I'm flipping around a pair of scissors. That's dangerous, man. Joe, put those down. So come back for the next video where we will take a look at a original Surface RT. Yeah, pretty old stuff. I want to see if it's something you can use in 2022 because it's got a nice screen on it, and I'm interested to see if it would work. So that'll be the next video. Come back for that. Hit the subscribe button. It's that little red thing down there that's, you know, it would be blinking at you, but YouTube hasn't initiated that. Plus, it'd be a little bit annoying. So be going subscribe, 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 and I'll talk to you later.